this kind of we're streaming live on YouTube. I see. You pulled off something. You're sharing it on the Chabad NDG Facebook page.
Exactly, the Chabad NDG YouTube.
There you go. We've had we're talking about Frumprov online. We went pretty much every week. We're probably like the only minyan. We've named like 30 babies. It's crazy. I mean, we have to guide the person at home through doing the bris. It's a little complicated. You need a pair of tweezers and you don't use a
chainsaw?
No. Not everyone has a chainsaw in their house. I can't guide them through like professional mile, like what I would do with my
It's always faster, no?
It is. But yeah, they have to like hold the baby up to the camera and we guide them. We tell them a little to the okay. This is too bad.
Yeah.
Anyway,
we are really
is like off. It's from comedy.
This is not
the typical
right here. This is the From Our Mouths to God's Ears podcast. Two rabbis talking. Supposed to be Dan as well. Definitely, this is not from Prov.
Yeah. Well, Dan usually is kind of the guy who like he's the non-rabbi, so he's the one who like balances us out and actually says all the perverted jokes. So it's up to me to fill that void, which is what I'm doing. And I'm talking about how, so we've had basically a minyan every single week of comedians. Chol HaMoed, the last one was hysterical, actually, my personal favorite. We've developed some kind of, like we're finally getting the programming to work somewhat. And this week we only have 7 right now. So that's why this has turned into an appeal, not for your funds or donations, but for the rabbi to join this week's From Prov. No, you don't have to, okay. But if you want to,
well, the problem is that
I'm just saying, I know where you live.
Whoa. I really take my From Prov acts seriously, and I don't know if I'm going to have time to be able to prepare an act.
All right. Anyway, let's talk about this.
I've actually started, this is the first time I'm saying this publicly, but I've actually started writing a book.
Ooh, what's the book
and
about?
I've been writing around a chapter a day. I just started chapter 5.
So you've written for 5 days. You made it sound like you're like in chapter 112.
Well, 5 days is a big deal in this world, and 5 chapters of a book is a nice little accomplishment. I mean, obviously it's a rough draft, but it's a book, and it's
hold on. You're not allowed to write on Chol HaMoed, so that means like you voice noted on Chol HaMoed, right?
No, I started writing it before Pesach, and then I've continued since Pesach is over.
All right, and what's the book about?
The hardest part was actually this past Shabbos when I had a really great chapter kind of outlined in my head, and I was just waiting for Shabbos to be over in order to write it down. It was terrible. I should not do that. That's not a really good example that a rabbi should give for how to practice Shabbos. But the working title is Why Bother Getting Married? Ooh. And basically the premise of this book is that I think that for years, people, especially in the Jewish community, have been talking about intermarriage while we have been silent about something that's much bigger than intermarriage, and that is marriage itself, that young people today are not getting married. So instead of this book being about my case for intermarriage, it's about my case for marriage and why young people should get married. And
first of all, I think you mean your case against intermarriage. And second of all, for those who don't know, we're talking to the love rabbi here. Rabbi Yisrael Bernath is known internationally as the love rabbi. There's been documentaries about him. Seriously, that for a while, like anytime I would try to just chill with him, that he had like people literally following him around with cameras.
Well, it's very possible this podcast is going to be on a new documentary because I have someone following me around with the camera right now called Kosher Love in Quarantine.
Following you around with a camera in quarantine. He's staying his distance, right?
That's right. That's right.
That is impressive.
Yeah, it's going to be a new documentary.
How do you do that with people just following you around? How do you not know that you're like, on camera and have to act? How do you behave the same way?
You just be yourself. Like right now, my glasses are crooked. I feel like I'm having a really bad beard day, and you just got to be yourself.
The trick is get beard extensions. I need some. I need beard extensions.
It's all about the products.
What
you gotta
product
get
do you
products.
use? What
I don't use any products, but that's what they say. Everyone just says it's all about the products. So I'm just saying it's all about the products.
You know, my brother, he actually has a really long beard, but I didn't know that. Like, I don't know, we see each other and everything. I never knew he had a long beard because he rolls it up. And then one day we were like, I was just chatting with it. And all of a sudden, like in the middle of chatting, I guess it was itching him or something, and he just unrolled it. And I'm telling you, it's like finding out there's no Santa. Like you find out that your younger brother has a beard.
You just connected your brother's beard to finding out there's no Santa.
I mean,
you just spoke about finding out there's no Santa on a rabbi/Jewish podcast.
Well, you know, it's a Jewish audience. We all know there's no Santa. Like the equivalent would be saying like finding out that there's no Elio Novi around nowadays.
I think that you should preface this podcast by spoiler alert content, in case maybe there's someone who's listening who doesn't know.
About Santa, people.
I wouldn't want to destroy some kid's universe.
Hold on. This is wild. So I discovered this. You know how like the Medrash, the famous Medrash about Nachshon ben Aminadab.
What is Medrash?
Let me just get this point across because we could get total sidetracked.
You seem very excited about this.
I am. But Medrash, in short, someone on Twitter wrote this. It's like fanfic on the Torah. And I thought that was a little bit of a fun take on it. It's not accurate. It's not accurate, but it's a fun take. But anyway, one of the Medrash, I'm very worked up about this, is because it was wild. So there's a very famous Medrash that every like Chabad child is taught at birth. Like at birth, we're taught this Medrash. Literally, the doctor says, "Welcome to the world. Let me tell you about Nachshon ben Aminadab." This is what he does. The Jews were standing. This is what I've heard. The Jew, or you know what? You tell me what you know. You tell me what you've heard, and then I'm gonna blow your bubbles.
I heard the following. I don't know if it was at birth, but very close to at birth. And I've heard it in so many different versions. And I will try to be as non-dramatic as possible.
Go.
But the Jewish people, I'm sorry. People, do not stop calling me. My phone does not stop ringing.
That's what happens when you become an author. All right, so I'll share it in the meantime.
Hold on a second. So the Jewish people are leaving Egypt. They've got the dough on their backs because it couldn't rise, because they had to go so fast. They have the riches of the Egyptians, and then the Egyptians are following behind them. They come to the Sea of Reeds. The sea in front of them, the Egyptians behind them. Sea in front, Egyptians behind. And they turn to Moses and say, "Moses, what did you do to us? You brought us to the sea. There's nowhere to go." The beginning of Jewish complaining. And Moses doesn't know what to do. He turns to God. God's not answering. Sorry. It's going to just the beeping. God's not answering. And this guy named Nachshon ben Aminadab jumps in the water. The water goes slowly as he gets deeper into the water. It goes up to his nostrils, or maybe possibly over his head, to the point where he's about to drown. And then, miraculously, the water splits.
I should mute because in the background, my wife's putting the kids to bed, so you're probably going to hear a lot of shrieking now. But now let me blow your mind, because
but a few people followed him also. Like there was a bunch of people who followed him, thought it was cool, and yeah.
And he caused the sea to split, right?
That's right.
So I was like, okay. But by the seventh day, right, of Pesach, I pulled out the Chumash. Actually, the Me'am Loez. The Me'am Loez is like a book that's got all the Medrash on it. It's a whole series, and I start reading, and I read it with the Medrash. I'm trying to make it interesting for my kids, and then just like I'm waiting, like where is this Nachshon story, and it's not popping up. And basically, I'm reading how I'm reading from the Chumash, how like from the actual Torah itself, how the Hashem brought all night. Hashem brought a wind blew the water, created the pathway all night. So that's a lot of time where he was blowing and where the wind was blowing and splitting the sea until that path was created. And then where do I find Nachshon ben Aminadav? I find that, and then suddenly that appears, but it's an argument. It's an argument in the Gemara in the Talmud in Sota 38a or 37a, because I went to look up in the Gemara after because I was just mind blown. This is what actually happened. So first of all, there are two opinions. Basically, the path was already split, and the question was who's going to go through first. So according to one opinion, the tribe of Benjamin started running, and then the tribe of Judah basically beat them to it. But according to another opinion, Nachshon ben Aminadav, there was arguments, and Nachshon ben Aminadav just walked into the path first.
Just like that?
Yeah. So instead of him being the cause of the sea splitting, which is what we learned all our life, I think this one's going to be the one with all the spoiler alerts, because this is going to just spoil generations of knowledge. People are going to doubt everything they've ever learned after finding this out. And do the research yourself. It's pretty wild.
This is insane.
Mm-hmm. This is like the sort of thing that makes people become anti-vaxxers.
Wow.
Which is an appropriate time to become an anti-vaxxer because we're in the parsha of Tazria Mitzrayim. See, I like that segue.
That was a sweet segue.
I know. I'm going to take it a step further with the segueing. Spoiler alerting. I had a whole nother spoiler alert going on my Yom Tif, my Pesach. So basically, I got excited. This year for Pesach, I decided, usually I go through the Chabad Haggadah and I share some of those thoughts, or I listen to some Dvar Torahs, or I try to read a bit into a couple of different Haggadahs, find things.
Well, usually you're doing a Seder for a lot of people.
Right. No, well, last year we did a Seder for a lot of people, and then one with our family and a couple of guests, like a more intimate one. So for that Seder, I tried to prepare Dvar Torah. Anyway, this year,
you had a huge Seder.
No, Donald Trump. It was the one who had the huge Seder.
Oh,
I had a very small one. I just had one with my kids, and I decided, okay, let me try to think of something a little different, a little fun. And so I'm like, all right, what's the origins of the Seder? Because I was like looking at the Seder, and something I always thought about, because I love history, is how like half of the Seder is like rabbinic times. So I was wondering what happened before rabbinic times, where did the Seder, huh?
Yeah, because a lot of it is from the Talmud. So before the Talmud was written, I mean, obviously there was a couple of 100 years there from the time they left Egypt until the time the Talmud was written. So
almost 1,000, I would say. Almost 1,000, or maybe even over 1,000. But basically you have the Hillel sandwich, right? Hillel.
First sandwich ever invented. Is there an origin of a sandwich before the Hillel sandwich?
Possibly, but it possibly what tasted good, but nowadays
it was a shawarma, right? That's what it was.
Shawarma with
roasted lamb.
Yeah.
In a nice wrap.
No, there was no wrap. It was a matzah. It was a matzah.
But it was a wrap. It wasn't a matzah like we have today. It was like this laffa.
I don't know. The original one in Egypt was a laffa. I don't know if the one in the time of the Talmud was a laffa. I think that was more like a matzah like we have today.
Jews have always been foodies. It wasn't the matzah we have today. It's really hard being a Jewish foodie and having that matzah.
Well, let me tell you something. Why it's bothering me so much. I know we're getting off topic again, but why don't we have a replacement for the Pesach lamb in that Hillel sandwich? Like we have one on our Seder plate. We have for the Chagiga, we have an egg. We have a lamb shank or a chicken neck. This year, did you get a chicken neck? Like they were out of chicken neck, so I just went and I strangled a pigeon. Use that. Don't.
No, that's not funny.
Not funny?
No.
Okay. Is it funnier if I use the term choke to death or strangled?
No, not funny.
Neither of them.
No.
I'm gonna test it out again on Promprov. Anyway, but in the Hillel sandwich, we don't have the Pesach lamb anymore. All right, we're just gonna leave it matzah maror. Like, couldn't they have put something in there?
Like, what would you put in there?
Prunes. It would balance out the after effects of the matzah.
That is a good idea. I would vote for you putting prunes in the Hillel sandwich.
Did you ever try this out? When you make a cholent, you put Imodium inside and you see which one is going to win. You like test out the power. No, okay. Okay, moving along. So I started looking into the origins of the Seder. You know, like what happened before that night when Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Eliezer all gathered, you know? What happened before that argument over how many miracles were at the sea? So here's what I discovered, and it was really fascinating. Basically, the entire history of the Seder, basically pre-Seder, Pesach was as follows. First of all, Pesach, we gave the Korban Pesach once, the first night of Pesach, right?
Right.
The rest of it is called throughout Chag HaMatzos, the festival of the matzahs. So there were like 7 days of matzahs. That's what it was about there the rest of the time. There was no Seder, nothing. The Seder began when, remember that story of the 70 sages that Ptolemy, just to back up a little.
Yes.
Alexander the Great conquered the known world, then he died early, and it got divided among his generals. Egypt landed under Ptolemy. So
Yes.
the next king was Ptolemy II, and he decided to create the world's greatest library. And he wanted to include for the first time original translations of every single religion's great books. So he invited, well, okay, so it depends. According to the Gemara, I remember learning this in the Gemara, and now there's also in the Sfarim HaChatzonim, the Apocrypha, the extra books from that didn't make it into Tanakh. So that one didn't make it in because of it happened after the Tanakh was closed. But the letter of Aristeas, you could read it. Both versions have minor differences. Either he invited them or he forced them. He gathered 70 sages, Jewish sages, and he told them to write the Torah, to translate it. And the Gemara, I remember learning, says that it was the worst thing to ever happen and the best thing to ever happen. And you're going to find out why it was the worst thing to ever happen. Because
Exciting.
Huh?
This is exciting.
Yeah. So according to the Gemara, he put them all in different 70 sages in different houses. And according to both places, he put them into 70 different places, and he had them translated, and they all translated exactly the same. According to the Gemara, they made 6 or 7 the same differences, stuff that would have offended him. But here's the thing: imagine you're an Egyptian, and suddenly, for the first time ever, you come across there's this the entire story of the Jewish people's history is out there, the Torah, right? I don't know if they did the Tanakh. They did the Torah. I don't think that was Tanakh. I think it was just the Torah, the 5 books of Moses. And who were the bad guys in the 5 books of Moses?
The Egyptians.
Right.
This reminds me of a story I have to tell you.
Go.
Sorry, just a sidebar here.
We're full of sidebars. We're fans of them.
Years ago, I used to work for this organization called Living Legacy here, where I did these hands-on programs with students in public schools and in private schools as well. So I would work with the public school system here in Montreal, with the English Montreal School Board especially. And so I was in the east end of Montreal in St. Leonard, and they brought me there to talk to the students about Hanukkah. And so I started telling the story. Here I am, a young rabbi, somewhat naive, and I'm telling the story about the Greeks did this and the Greeks did that and the Greeks did that and the Greeks that. Meanwhile, this entire school is Greek. I had no idea. Their families are all of Greek origin. And some kid, the sweet kid, comes over to me afterwards and he says, "Rabbi, we're really sorry."
That's great. That's great. That's why usually on Hanukkah, like I would always say the Seleucids. It avoids the whole Greek Syrian. It doesn't offend Greeks. Doesn't offend Seleucids. That's right.
So there it is. So they're reading the 5 books of Moses, and they see it's all about the Egyptians, and the Egyptians are the bad guys.
Exactly. And so they go into quick propaganda. Like we've got to share the real version of what happened. So how do we know we don't have the recording of what this guy did, but there was an Egyptian historian and priest named Manetho. You can look this up. And the only his writings survive not from him, but like from there are some Greeks who recorded his writings, including Josephus. I think you have the same book that I do of Josephus. Check it out in the back. I know you're gonna go wild because in the back he has his responses to like Appian and to Tacitus.
Yes, I've noticed that. I haven't looked through it specifically, but I have
Check
noticed.
it out after this because it's wild. First of all, you find out what they thought of us. And you know how like now everyone thinks Jews are cheap. So back then they thought we were lazy because of Shabbos and holidays taking off, you know, which is weird how it changed around. But anyway,
We're not lazy.
no, we are. I'm
part of a new sect of
hold on,
Judaism.
we are not lazy. They're trying to get us into quarantine and having a hard time at it. Like we're still doing.
Yeah, but isn't there a new sect of Judaism called Lazy Docs?
Lazy? I'm missing out. What's?
It's just like you're Orthodox Jewish,
Oh, lazy docs.
but you just if something you're too lazy to do, you don't do it.
Right. So like you don't want to go to shul. You're just I'm in quarantine.
Well, that's the easiest way. I'm in quarantine.
Well, no, actually, by the way, nobody should go to shul.
No one's going.
Not talking about now. Like I've been.
That's what I'm talking about. We are in Lazy Docs.
Lazy docs. That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that we're all lazy docs. Like there are certain part, like let's be honest. Okay, let's be honest. Who really says the part of Karbonis is after Inkalakane? That's like lazy docs. Like the only part you concentrate during davening is by when it comes to song of the day, and you're like, what day is it today?
You know what the hardest thing about not going to shul? So there's this law in the Code of Jewish Law that if you come to the shul late, it's better to daven with the minyan than to daven yourself. So you just, do a couple prayers and you skip the rest of it and you catch up with the minyan. Now you can't do that because there's nowhere to go to shul. So you got to say the whole thing.
Some shuls, by the way, have started, we haven't done it, but some shuls have started like Zoom minyanim. Like even some Chabad shuls here where like, I mean, they're not doing Kaddish and stuff like that, but everyone davens in the comfort of their own home. And, and somehow the rabbi's kids are not screaming off the walls. Like I tried that. I did my own thing for a little while on Chabad NDG's page. But in the meantime, upstairs, my wife was like holding the kids back and we had them muffled and tied up for, like over an hour. I daven barichos, I daven very long, especially long.
Especially when your kids are home.
When your kids are home and you don't have to take care of them.
Especially when you're not watching them.
Yeah, I mean, I do Musaf, Ne'ilah. I do the whole Yom Kippur davening.
Yeah, absolutely.
Charge,
Anything to get out of parent duty.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Like all those people who used to run to shul.
And my wife does the same thing. Like she's very, very diligent on her Tehillim these days.
Yeah. What about all those people who used to run to shul right at bedtime for Ma'ariv? What do they do now? Do they have to actually be home for bedtime?
Well, the real problem is that now, like their wives are used to them being gone. Like Ma'ariv is like what, 5 minutes, 10 minutes? Their wives are used to them being gone for like an hour and a half. So they've got to like pretend to add prayers, like.
That's right.
What do they
now the wives know how long the prayer really is.
So you just have to say like they add stuff with the minyan, like every month they take out the honey, they take out the Torah. We have to read 4 parsha. It's crazy. You don't want to know what happens in shul. There's the mikvah. It's crazy. I don't want to tell you. Every single week we need to give someone else a bris. I don't want to talk about it. It's traumatic.
Terribly.
So glad we're not going to shul. Anyway, back to this Manetho. So he wrote. So basically, we know from because Josephus kind of like responds to him and quotes him in full. And his quotes. What did he write? What's the Egyptian?
The Jews were lazy.
No, he didn't write that the Jews are lazy. He wrote his history makes us out to be terrible, terrible people, thieves, and this and that. But mainly, we were like this group, according to Manetho, who Josephus already disproves by comparing to previous books that Manetho had written and comparing to a whole bunch of historical items that they knew from that time that he had written, that Manetho had written. But anyway, Manetho claims that we were a bunch of people with saras, leper. You would say that lepers, right? Now they call them, which we'll get into later.
Is saras leprosy? Is that what it was?
No, saras is what Michael Jackson had. I'm not joking. It's called like vigilism or vigitism or something like that.
So what exactly is tsaras according to the Torah?
Well, it's more of a like spiritual affliction, right? Like
Right.
we know that it's like it comes from the word, like the etymology of the word saras in Hebrew is like I think related to doing bad, right? So it's
Somebody would gossip. Somebody would speak lashon hara.
well, that was one example. There, the Gemara lists like 5 or 6 different things, like also being miserly, stuff like that. It lists like not like calling your friend to check up on him while during quarantine, like over an entire Pesach. It
Right.
lists that weirdly. I don't
Right.
know why, but
Not walking over to your friend's house to even be socially distanced while your friend was
this is
there
getting very specific.
looking out the window saying, maybe he's gonna come today.
By the way, yeah, I did not go visit you. I apologize. I apologize. I went to visit Rabbi Yosh, who lives near you, but we didn't make it to you because every time like we came by his place, we went in twice.
Well, I went a while ago to visit him, and when I got there, he wasn't there, but his neighbor was there, and they have a pet hog.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they actually have a pig.
That's anti-Semitic, basically.
I don't know if it's anti-Semitic.
Hold on, does it predate his arrival, or like is this
Yeah,
like
no,
okay, the rabbi moved nearby, I'm getting a hog.
They were walking their pig. And
That's
it was
pretty
a
cool.
great activity for my kids that have been very bored lately.
Yeah, it could get boring.
My kids are so bored.
Hold on, people are buying games. People should buy pets, but like weird ones.
No,
That's a good
people
idea.
are buying pets. My kids are so bored that yesterday they took their dolls, put them on the toilet with like books in their hands and like stuff and like dressed them all up and took pictures of their dolls on the toilet.
Wow, that's impressive.
That's a new level of boredom, or maybe a new level of quarantine for me.
It's a little disturbing, to be honest. I mean, my son is toilet training, so they would have an excuse, but well, what's your kid's excuse? So okay, where were we? So yeah, so anyway, he says that we were nasty and this that. So anyway, just to finish that off, which by the way, that connects a little to our parsha, because he was saying Manetho was claiming that we're a bunch of lepers who were evil people who overthrew Egypt and then ran away. We were sent. Egypt sent us out, and then we were running away, and we were desperate for water, and that's why Manetho claims that we worship a donkey because donkeys found water, and the Egyptians couldn't even be bothered with dealing with us. Like they didn't chase us or anything like that. Like, why should we care about these losers who just ran away? So to respond to that, right? Because remember that at that time there was Hellenism. There was a lot of people wanted to be Greek. This is going full circle, right? I mean, you taught your Greek class over there. So
there you go. Go Greek.
Yeah. So and there was a huge Jewish community in Alexandria, which, by the way, back then a lot of violence ended up happening thanks to this. But you had a lot of different opinions and different, at that time. And so to counter this narrative, this Egyptian narrative, they created something called the Seder, where what's the point of the Seder? What's the entire goal?
Is to tell your children the story that happened to you when you left Egypt.
Everything in the Seder is related to that. Go look at the Seder again. Everything is about like in your face Egyptians, like Egyptians. Seriously, it
is. I thought about it actually as I was going through the Seder. I was thinking about how everything is like a not only is just a slur to the Egyptians, but also like making sure the kids, it builds up the trope, the anti-Egyptian trope, so the kids know, and so that generationally they know.
Right. So it's in other words, the entire point of the Seder was to tell our version of the story. It was an evening, and it was based off of like the Greeks had these kind of meals where they had like it had a Seder, it had an order, it had like first we dip something in here, then we do that, then you have to talk about something else, about a certain topic, then we move on to eating this, then we, so it was based off of some of those that are described in Greek history. But really, if you look about it, like everything is about that, counting the miracles at the sea, right?
Yeah.
In your face, Egyptian.
It's actually a great piece of PR.
It is. And the Egyptians are gone.
Before there were newspapers, before there was a way to get your message across, they had to do it just by word of mouth. And this was a great way to market the story and to market the narrative, the Jewish narrative.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It worked.
I never thought about it that way.
Yeah. So for me, that was,
and it still works today.
Yeah. Nobody ever mentions Manetho's version.
Wow, it's amazing. I mean, just think about how powerful it is. What do you think is the most popular Jewish holiday? Obviously, whatever holiday was going to be near Xmas was going to be popular outside of Hanukkah.
No, that's only recent. I think that's only recent.
What do you think is the most popular Jewish holiday?
It's Passover.
It's Passover.
Yeah. I mean, Yom Kippur is also pretty up there in Rosh Hashanah.
I mean, if they only knew that there's a holiday in like 30 something days from now that we eat cheesecake.
I know. I can't believe people don't. They go to Sholem.
It is the least celebrated Jewish holiday.
It's one of the most important.
It's pre-Cheesecake Factory. That's not kosher. But
no, it's also one of the most important. You get to hear the 10 Commandments then, and you eat cheesecake, ice cream.
How bad could that be?
Well, it makes sense why they would. We're lactose intolerant people, So if we're gonna drop one holiday,
I guess so. Drop the lactose. I mean, the truth is, I'm sure the Greeks had a much better dinner party than us. I mean, we could have started off with champagne, some nice hors d'oeuvres. What do we get? A piece of celery, a piece of parsley. In our house,
I think there originally was the Passover like lamb on there, but now basically we went on a full about face. Originally, like before the Seder started, it was the first night of Passover. We were eating lamb, and you had to eat it by the time the night was over. You had to finish the lamb. So we were stuffing our faces with lamb.
It was on a spit.
Probably, possible. I don't know.
I'm just kind of trying to picture it in my mind. That's it.
Yeah, well, they would slaughter it during the day, I think, and then at night they would have it heated up, and they would.
What if you were vegan?
You would eat the onions that were like on top of it, that when they cooked it.
So they cooked it with onions.
Or you would just be like thrown out of the family. Like they didn't tolerate vegans like we do, here in NDG. We allow vegans to occasionally walk into our synagogue like on Tuesdays. But
oh, it's terrible.
I think you're a vegan, Rabbi, aren't you?
But really, I mean, what would people do if they didn't want to finish the lamb by midnight?
Well, they had to. If they didn't, then you heard what happened to the firstborn, right?
Do people like secretly slip it to the dog?
It doesn't say anywhere that you're not allowed to. I mean, I do that with my koro sandwich. I hate that sandwich. That's the worst part of the meal. Do you agree? What's your worst part of the Seder?
The worst part of the Seder is when I look at the matzah and think about how much it cost me. I can't help it.
Okay, so maybe the new anti-Semitic stuff is true about how we're cheap.
No, I'm sorry. I mean, I open up that box. They're all broken. There's like 7 matzahs, and I think this cost me $38.
That's true. It's an outrage. But you know how much work goes into it? It's kind of cool.
It is. I mean, I've been there. I mean, I know how much work it is. It's like a sweatshop over there.
Mm-hmm. This year, handmade shmura matzah is not so appealing, right?
And I'll tell you, well, handmade shmura matzah. I shouldn't be saying this too loud, but I opened up one of my matzahs and there was like a remnants of a cigarette butt.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome. That I've never seen.
Yeah.
Wow. Where was this? Ukraine or Israel?
No, Montreal.
Montreal matzah.
That's right.
cigarette butt in a Montreal. You could.
Can I tell you something? And I love everybody equally. I'm just
Montreal matzo is the
saying,
best.
Ukraine matzah this year was better.
I didn't have Montreal matzo this year, but Ukraine matzo was pretty good.
It was delicious. I mean, whatever that means for matzah, but it really was. It was a really nice matzah. I was so impressed with the matzah.
Probably because it was made by the Russians.
I don't know. Maybe it's the Russian.
That was a terrible Crimean joke.
Oh yes,
Sorry. Yeah,
I missed it.
Yeah, but this year's you're right. The Ukrainian matzah was delicious.
It was half the price. Half the price. I'm not saying it because people are gonna say, "Oh, you're a cheap Jew." It's a lot of money.
It is. Someone asked me about making matzah in their own home.
Yeah. Well, you need well water. Where are you going to find well water? You have to have well water that was left overnight.
You go to the mikvah. A mikvah is basically a well. Now you can't go to the mikvah.
Yeah, you can't go to the mikvah. It's off.
But I snuck over to the Chabad rabbi. Okay, I don't want to get. There is a rabbi in the Montreal area whose home is right near the river.
Yeah.
I casually drove over. I had some dishes that I had to dip in the mikvah, and I did it in the St. Lawrence River this year.
That is cool. Did you pick up any pieces of kitchen?
It was
70s.
Huh? Why would there be pieces of kitchen in the?
They just dump their old construction materials into the St. Lawrence River. So apparently there's just random faucets floating in the river.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
So, but my hands were freezing. It was really, really cold, but it was a very enjoyable experience. I went from cleaning comments in the house and that stress in the house with all the kids home with the learning and the school and the online and that all that stress to suddenly going to this tranquil backyard where the dipping it in the water, you hear that very nice sound. There are birds in the trees. Was freezing, but it was lovely.
The crazy Jewish traditions.
Yeah,
I mean, you couldn't even make it up if you wanted to.
Yeah, we have some pretty weird traditions. Anyway, back to this parsha.
Starting.
Huh?
I hear a song about. I wear a kippah
on this head. Oh, I gotta find that. I'm gonna search for that.
Yeah.
How are you feeling, by the way?
How am I feeling? I feel like basically back to normal, but it has been an insane month. An absolutely insane month. I don't wish it on anybody.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Robert Bernath had the coronavirus. How did you get it? What, everyone, now I'm hearing, everyone talks about the loss of smell, but I heard you didn't lose your sense of smell?
Not that I know of, but maybe I realized that maybe I never have a sense of smell, so there was nothing to lose to begin with.
I was your roommate, so I can confirm.
Definitely. If I lasted with you as a roommate for a year, right?
Exactly. You had no sense of smell. But
if you want to know why,
but what
I always say
how bad did you get it? What was it like? How did it hit you?
I always say that if you want to know how important it is to get married, just walk into a yeshiva dorm and smell. Anyway, so
fair enough.
I don't know how I got it. I mean, obviously I'm a rabbi and I come in contact with a lot of people. Apparently, according to one doctor I spoke to, it seems like I had gotten it from multiple sources because I had a few different strains.
Wow.
But
what were you doing? Did you go into stores and stuff like that?
Well, I actually
hugging all your congregants. Did you circumcise?
So before I came down with the symptoms, I was actually running errands for people, and because people needed help, especially elderly, and I was running around a lot and trying to take care of people and help people before Passover. I was doing, people, while everyone was busy being quarantined, rabbinic duties were insane.
You said duty, sorry. Yeah, for me, I pretty much stayed in quarantine, and if I would do anything for anyone, I was triply careful.
I was actually in the middle of giving a Zoom class. It was a Tuesday night.
What happened?
And I just like could not. I couldn't continue, and this never happens to me. I'm
But
really.
how? Why? Like diarrhea? Did you have
I
like
just felt my
lumps?
stomach. Um, I felt like really hot, like the sweats, and then I was getting the chills, and then I felt nauseous. Anyway, that night I vomited and diarrhea and you name it, and just kept on getting hot and cold, and it was just so uncomfortable, completely uncomfortable. It's not like a regular flu. Just I can't even describe how crazy it was. Then I started this dry cough. I was coughing. I couldn't stop coughing,
Youch.
and
Were you still throwing up, vomiting, and
throwing up, vom. Yeah, absolutely.
were you able to eat at least?
And then the craziest part, on top of all of that, all of my joints and muscles started hurting, like my entire body. Everything was hurting.
Oh my God.
Every single muscle. It was crazy. So like I just did not feel
You gotta start exercising more. That's not related to
That's what I was thinking at the time, but I did not even feel comfortable in my own skin.
Youch.
And this lasted for a good, I mean, it got the serious part was probably about 7, maybe 8 days.
Oh my gosh.
And it literally could not sleep, could not eat. I had no appetite. Like I didn't want to look at anything. I just like just having water. I lost a lot of weight.
At least there's a bonus to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's called the Corona diet.
Yeah. But then you gain it all back, and well, no, matzah releases itself.
I'm sure I gained it back by now.
Good.
And it was just like, you just can't do anything. You can't, like, I can't explain it. Like, you think, oh, it's nice. You can just lay in bed and you can watch some kind of film or something. No, you can't.
I actually asked you, like, I told you, I was like, hey, you should watch this. You should. And you're like, see, I can't watch it. You texted me. You weren't even able to talk.
Yeah.
Like, I cannot watch anything.
Yeah. Like I was just so uncomfortable in every way.
You couldn't sleep either. Like you couldn't at least sleep it off.
Like in 20-minute intervals at best.
That's terrible.
Yeah, it was really, really rough. I don't even think I'm describing it well enough so you can really understand how rough it was. And I didn't even know at the time. I thought maybe I had a gastro of some sort, and I didn't know anyone that was Corona positive, so I figured maybe it wasn't Corona. So I kind of wrote it off, to the point where 2 days later, I had a regular class, a regular Thursday morning class, and I just went on with the class. I don't even know what I was thinking. And about 45 minutes into the class, like I didn't want to tell them. I just like, I couldn't continue.
So you just end the meeting.
End the meeting, and no one knew why.
Wow. Did anything help, like Advil or?
I kept on hearing different things about what to take when I didn't even know what I had. I didn't know what it was.
So when did you find out what you had?
So I kept on calling this number, and the number that they had given to call if you think that you have symptoms. Apparently I had symptoms. And I would wait on the phone, and then some random person would get on the phone and they'd ask me a couple questions. I answered them all honestly. So like, okay, well, you can't get tested. You probably don't have it. Like, okay, fine.
Wow.
I don't have it.
Did you eventually get tested?
So it was already about 7 or 8 days after I had my symptoms that somebody I was describing it in a text to somebody, and they're like, have you seen a doctor? I said, I can't see a doctor. Like, where are you going to find a doctor here to be able to see? So he said, I have a doctor in my family. They're gonna call you. So the doctor like called me a half an hour later. He's like, you have COVID-19. They're going to call you from a testing center. So I'm like, okay, fine. Just answer them and make an appointment. So I'm like, 10 minutes later, I got a call from the testing center. Can you come in a half an hour?
Whoa.
Yeah.
And what they do?
I go downtown to the testing center. It was like this abandoned hospital
Okay.
on the Pine.
Yeah,
Down-
yeah, the former Royal Vic.
No, it's the Hotel Do, something like that. It was
Oh
called.
yeah, okay. Hotel View.
Oh, it looked like it was like out of a horror film. I don't watch horror
It's a
films.
huge building.
It's crazy. So I walk in. First, I have no idea where to go. So then this like security guard kind of flags me down. So he says, "Come in." Oh, you have an appointment? Yeah, I have an appointment. As of a half an hour ago. It's like, "Oh yeah, you're the last one. We're waiting for you."
All right.
Okay. So he says, mask, gloves, sanitize. Okay, sanitize with your elbow. Press the button for the elevator. I'm like, okay. Get in the elevator. Goes up to the first floor. Get out. There's someone standing waiting for me.
Okay.
Sanitize. Sanitize. This whole thing about sanitizing. I mean, you have to sanitize. This is insane.
The
Follow.
only reason you're sharing this is because this is the exact procedures the Torah says that you should do to someone with Saras. No. Okay, go on.
I walk down this corridor and to this booth where it's like all kind of makeshift.
Mm-hmm.
And this woman is taking my information. She asked me for my Medicare card, but she can't touch the Medicare card. So like I have to like kind of show it to her through the window.
Mm-hmm.
And then she says, "Okay, go to room number 8." So I walk into room number 8 and I sit down. And then from the other door on the other side of the room, these two women walk in. They look like they came from outer space. They're like totally like hazmat suits. And
Take us to your leader.
Exactly. That's how I felt. And I was like even half out of it. So
Did you take them to the aisle?
huh?
Okay, go on.
I don't know if you ever heard this, but my kids told me this joke yesterday. They're like, "What's the difference between a chef and a Chabadnik?" It's like,
Go on.
you know, the chef puts the oil in the pan, and the Chabadnik puts the pan in the oil. I thought it was very cute. You heard that one before, I'm sure.
I have, but it's good. Go, and you delivered it well. Go on.
So they walk in. "Have you gotten tested?" I'm like, "How would I get tested before?" "Okay, we're gonna test you." Now they pull out the swab, this long swab. Now, if I can tell you, I'm gonna try not to be as detailed as I can be, because just pretend like there's a little more drama than this. But if there's one reason not to have corona, it's just not to get this test.
Okay, it's like the stuff they stick in dinosaur tuchuses to check that. Yeah.
They first take this swab and they go all the way down my throat, and I'm gagging,
Oh man.
and they pull it out. Then, if you thought that was bad, they take that swab and they go through my nostril, and I'm telling you, they were touching my brain. It was insane. And they left it there for like 20 seconds. They're like, "Grr, get it out of here. Get it out of here." Anyway, then they pull it out. And that was the corona test.
And that it came back positive, right?
And then they said, "Okay, now you can." They also checked my lungs. They saw that I was having trouble coughing. So so the doctor came in. After they left, the doctor came in, checked my lungs, checked my, just to make sure.
Stethoscope stuff.
So I was having trouble coughing. But I wasn't at the point where I needed oxygen, which was great.
Good, thank God.
Yeah. But said there's basically nothing that they can do for me, and I should just quarantine and wait until the results come. This was Wednesday. Friday afternoon, I get a call from Health Canada that I was positive.
Wow.
And that I have to quarantine until 48 hours after my symptoms are away, and then my family has to quarantine for another 14 days after that. So
you're out now. Today was like your
today
release.
was my first day out. My first day out. My first.
Your family has nobody else caught it. Did
No
anyone
one
else?
else caught it that I know of. No.
Thank God.
And it's been well, now it's interesting because first of all, I offered to give plasma. So
Yeah.
I'm going to go give plasma because I have the antibodies, and apparently I have some good antibodies. So
Does it involve a long, thin, are they gonna?
The funny thing is, I don't really care if it's about me. Like, but if it's about saving someone else's life, like I'll go through the whole long thing again.
Okay, I'll be over tomorrow at. Got a whole bunch of these. I got some tests. No. Okay.
So, but apparently the one thing that's working now is this plasma that they're giving to patients, and it's from people who have recovered. So that's
Well,
really,
that's how they fix diseases, right? Like
yeah. So I'm really happy about that. Hope they get a vaccine. And I hear that at some point they're gonna, like, first of all, so when this filmmaker approached me to do this film, he's like, you know that you're like one of 6,000 people. You're a very rare breed here in Canada. Like, I didn't even think about that.
True.
And so he said that eventually, so someone else was telling me that eventually they're probably going to have to, like, there'll be a difference if you, because apparently you're immune to it once you've been through it, if you survive it.
Yeah. Well, what they don't know, it might be only for this year.
Right. Well, for the time being.
Yeah, exactly. And you also don't want to go around spreading it. So you can party right now with you can play hockey with a bunch of other people who had corona.
That's right. We could. So that's what they're saying. Apparently, they're gonna, like, in Germany they already started, and in China they already started with people who have had it. Like, you get a special certificate or a thing where, like, you can, you don't have to worry like the rest.
Yeah,
of
in Israel I saw they have like already raves and parties and minyanim.
No way.
Yeah, all of those in the same thing, like
the rave
minion returns. It's gonna be a rave minion. The Shema.
Torah in 770.
Huh?
Torah in 770.
Oh boy. Oh yeah. Well, no, but it's really sad. We're losing a lot of people, unfortunately.
No, it is really sad. It's really sad. And if we can save lives, then we're going to do whatever we can. And this is, it's a really crazy time, and people have to be very serious. And one of the things that I wrote, the first opportunity that I had to write after I could actually, like, think straight, was just that people should really take it seriously. It is terrible. And I feel very grateful that I survived. And I know so many haven't. And I feel like now that I survived, I have to do something about it. I've taken it very strong. Just that, like I feel grateful.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's people my age who are fighting for their lives in ICU.
A friend of ours.
Yeah, a friend of ours. Exactly. That's what I'm thinking about. Totally healthy, not overweight, no pre-existing conditions. So I do really feel grateful that I survived. And because of that, I want to do something. Like, that's why I started writing the book. I've wanted to write the book for a while, but now I just started, and I just feel like now that I have the energy that I didn't have for almost 5 weeks, I want to just do whatever I can to either help the situation, help people, or make the world a little better. So that's what I'm thinking about.
Good. Well, yeah. Well, that's good. The plasma. You'll let us know how that goes.
Yeah, I'll let you know about the plasma.
Yeah. Going back to the whole Metzora, Tazria Metzora, the Saras.
There's definitely an uncanny resemblance between COVID-19 and this week's Torah portion.
Yeah, I know. That's like this will be a good week for us to get back in. Hold on, I had open somewhere what it is. It's vitiligo. That's what it's called.
Vitiligo.
Yeah, and Michael Jackson apparently had it. Vitiligo is whitening of the skin, and he had it on his face, but some people get it on their arm. Or I mean, that's what people think it is today, and we know that Saras wasn't catchy. Although at the same time they had people going away from everyone, self-isolation, right, quarantining, but it was more for spiritual.
So let's go through the process. So somebody would notice, I guess, a white spot on their arm or on their hands or somewhere
on their clothes or on their house.
Okay.
And they went through this whole purification process. It's very complicated.
So, give us the Coles Notes version.
Well, they would go to the Cohen, and the Cohen would look at it and determine if it was Saras.
Mm-hmm.
And then they basically had to self-isolate. They had to go away from everyone and
out of the camp.
Out of the camp or out of the city, depending, when, where it was. And again, if it's clothing, there was different things. I think they had to burn the clothes. If it was a house, they had to destroy part of the walls where it was. But if it was on the person, they had the procedure to get back was wild. Okay, let me see if I could find it. the procedure to get back, if I remember correctly, they had to like, man, I gotta find it because it's one of the weirdest things. They had to like take a bird and slaughter it themselves, like nobody else could do it for them. And then they had to take another bird and a whole bunch of like different random items, like bark of like acacia tree sort of things, and myrrh, and thistles or something, and immerse them in that previous bird's blood. I'm pretty sure it's that.
And
Hold
then
on.
what?
And then they had to like completely shave themselves. I'm not joking. They
Even
had
the
to,
eyebrows and eyelashes, everything.
yeah, here we go. The first group of requirements are that the formerly infected person kills a ritually pure bird over fresh water in a clay pot. Then he dips another living bird together with cedarwood, scarlet yarn, and azov into the blood. This combination was used to sprinkle the guy 7 times with the blood. And once the surviving bird was released over open fields, and the formerly infected person had shaved off all their hair and bathed themselves in their clothes in water, then they were ritually pure. No, we're still doing our podcast.
Oh, now it's 2 hours in a row.
Yeah. You want to come say hi?
No.
Oh, okay. Huh.
Wow. That is quite an intense experience.
How awesome is that? How wild is that? We thought Kaparis was weird.
I actually just finished this book called A Year Living Biblically by A.J. Jacobs. I don't know if you ever read it.
I read it. That's a great book.
It's a great book and it's hilarious.
It's
And-
something I want to do similar. I want to do something similar. I want to try a year of doing as many of the 613, or not a year, but I want to try. I was thinking of writing a book of me trying to do as many of the 613 commandments as I could. And
Well, you have to
recording
wait
like
till Israel opens up again.
Huh?
You have to wait till Israel opens up again so you can go to Israel because half of them are in Israel.
Nah, I travel to Israel. Like you plan accordingly, like
Yeah.
make it as part of a trip.
It was such a good book, and I'm happy he didn't get Saras in the middle because he doesn't write anything about this in the book, and this would have made for some very good reading.
Yeah, his books in general are very entertaining. You read the one of his him doing the Encyclopedia Britannica? Here, use it.
Yeah,
So that was also a really, really good one. Here, use this. It's very good.
maybe we'll see if we can get him as a guest on our podcast one day.
Ah, that would be great. When our podcast goes huge.
It already is huge.
We have 100 listeners at our last podcast. I think.
Thank you, all 100 people. What are you laughing? If you were in a room filled with 100 people, you'd have no problem. You'd say that was a successful event.
Yeah, that's true. We've had more than 100. Let's look at the stats. I think we had like 150. Although the last couple before Pesach, understandably, were not exactly too exciting. Let's see.
Does it have anything to do with me not being there?
Huh?
Shameless plug.
What was the plug? I missed it.
I said, did it have anything to do with me not being there?
Yeah. No. If you're there, it's the best. Yeah. So one of them, our second one, had 170 plays. But the last couple were
You're
like
in a room with 170 people and you're talking to them. You would have no problem. You would say that was a nice evening.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I don't understand why people are like, oh, well, if you want to have a successful podcast, that is amazing.
Well, I'm doing this for us. It's a lot of fun, actually.
170 people getting inspired by us is a very beautiful thing if they're getting inspired.
Yeah, I don't know if they're getting inspired. Some of them likely might get like literally some of what you've described as symptoms of the coronavirus, like vomit and diarrhea from just listening to us.
I know. Have we said anything of value in this podcast, or has this just been an entire podcast about nothing?
I think that what we said for us is of value, but for everyone else, they probably already knew all that stuff about Pesach, all that stuff about Nachshon, all the spoiler alerts that, like for us, because we come from a weird background, a very religious background. By the way, someone wrote to me like, I don't know why you're translating all the religious words. Your entire audience are people that like know what it means. But no, I think at least
Maybe
half our
that
audience.
guy is, but not the entire audience.
Yeah, I would say at least half our audience is basically our community who are just so bored
Right.
in such isolation. They're like, we're
Here's a
willing to
whole
listen to the
level-
rabbis.
Here's a whole new level of boredom
Yeah.
going on right now.
Yeah. Some of them asking us to do it longer and more podcasts.
That's right.
All right. So that's it for us.
You want to wrap it up?
Yeah. Let's wrap it up.
There's always closing music of some sort.
Right. Exactly. So
Did you find Because I'm a Jew?
I couldn't find it. So I'm just gonna go with Yoni Z. He's great.
It sounds a little chipmunky from my side.
Good song.
It's been a fantastic evening. I'm really happy to be back into it. Happy to be here live with you doing this podcast.
Yeah. Now you need to press end meeting.
And of course, as always, I know you didn't say this while I wasn't here, but if you want to support this podcast and some of the work that we're doing, you can always go to jewishandg.com/donate.
Okay. Have a great night. I'm leaving.
All rights reserved.
Good seeing you.
How do I end this thing? Gotta end it. Oh, end meeting.